obviously everybody is very excited about the implications for our economy as the mine workers go back to work. But this isn't exactly what the mine workers themselves wanted. This isn't the resolution they were hoping for.
Well, I don't know why people are getting excited about the economy either, because the point is the mine workers were not responsible for any crisis in the economy. What we have here is a symptom of a long-running malaise which goes back decades that finally erupted within the framework of an existing economic crisis. Now, they demanded 12,500 way back in 2012, but that was merely a demand. You always put demands, that's the way the thing works with wage negotiations. You put down a demand knowing you're going to come back on that. The point is that the demand was actually put forward by rock drill operators. The complexity of mining is something that's been missed. You have people, rock drill operators, the minority, but they are the elite in terms of what they do. Without them, there can be no mining. They're the ones who handle those huge drills, etc. Then you've got general miners who push the cocoa pans. You've got belt operators, belt cleaners, that sort of thing. So they're different grades. It was the RDOs, the rock drill operators, who wanted the 12.5. It looks as though they're going to get it.
So it's not 12.5 immediately, as I understand it. It's not that from next month's salary they'll be granted that 12,500 rand.
No, months ago the union actually put forward the idea that it could be phased in over 3 years. That was blocked. They then said 4 years, and then there was even talk of 5 years. In fact, 5 years I know was on the table, although no one's saying that at the moment. Now they've done a deal where there'll be 1,000. Again, it depends. You've got Lonmin, Amplats, and Implats. All of them paid different rates for the same sort of jobs. So, which is why there's been this confusion. How much is it? Is it 1,000? Is it 1,250? It depends on the mine. They'll get on average 1,000 rand extra a month, which is a lot of money, backdated to July last year, which means they go back to work now. By next week they will get their backdated pay, which is probably about 6,000 rand, which is not to be sniffed at, even if you've gone on strike for 5 months. Then over the 3-year period, they will be getting 1,000 or 1,250 back to 950, which will bring, I would imagine, the top paid people, the rock drill operators, up to 12.5, and it will bring most of the others up to 10,000. So in labour terms, in trade union terms, it's a victory.
But speaking very specifically about those miners on the ground, 12,500 rand to a man supporting a family in Rustenburg, it's still not something that's really feasible going forward.
Well, it's a lot better than it was. It's better than 5,000, which is what it used to be not so long ago. The point is we have a problem here, and it's an ongoing problem of migrant labour. We've persisted with a form of mining that was started more than a century ago. We haven't changed it. We still use migrant labour. So the majority of miners in the Platinum Belt actually come from the Eastern Cape, from the rural areas. They support families there, they support dependents there. It's estimated that every miner supports between 8 and 10 people in the rural areas. But then, of course, there's single men coming into single men's hostels. That awful hostel thing still exists, or else they get a living out allowance to live in a shack with no water, no running water, no electricity, nothing, but they get 1,500 or 1,850 rand extra, which means that, well, young men being young men, they end up having another family. So you end up having 2 families to support, one in slum conditions in shackland and the others in the rural areas. Now the problem arises that this crunch time has come, built up over years, when it should have been dealt with. It could have been avoided had government at various levels, had the companies, and had the union at the time, which was actually co-opted into being the line management for the various platinum companies. Had they actually done something about it, we wouldn't have had this eruption. The eruption has come at the very time that platinum sales are falling. Palladium, which is a platinum group metal, has been found to be a substitute, well, it has been for quite a while, for autocatalysts. And one should never forget, it's a catalyst. Anyone who knows basic year 1 secondary school chemistry knows that a catalyst is something that doesn't change. It helps to precipitate a chemical reaction. So therefore you've got now more than 2 million ounces of recycled platinum coming onto the market at a time when demand is falling, at a time when palladium, which the Russians produce the majority of, is coming onto the market. So there is a prospect, and this is the horrible thing, we have a crisis building again, which could lead to social catastrophe. And that is, can you imagine if, say, 30, 50,000 miners are retrenched. 8 to 10 dependents. How many people in the rural areas is that going to impoverish? And then what do impoverished people in rural areas do? They move to cities. We're already an by African standards, under-urbanized society. We already have a problem with infrastructure in the cities. So what's going to happen? We could have a social catastrophe on our hands unless everyone pulls together now and realizes the problems of the past that have been dealt with in the future, and not just sit back complacently and say, oh, wonderful, strike's over, good, economy will improve, look what's happened to the rand, it actually blipped up a little bit against the dollar, the pound, the euro. Now is the time to really start thinking.